This is my 1970 Chevrolet pickup. It's a long bed stepside. I'm going to do a walk around and discuss the truck and talk about the engine and the work that's been done to it. I'll also point out a few of the minor cosmetic issues. I've had this truck since 1990. Bought it when I was a sophomore in college. It's been mine ever since. Under the hood, I have the original 350 engine, which has been modified, of course. If you look here at the breather, you can see that it's a dual intake breather off of a 1976 Corvette, and the breather tubes come out here, another one down there, so you get a cold air intake, maybe a little bit of a ram air intake, but I wouldn't know if it makes any difference as far as that's concerned. Have a Holley 4-barrel carburetor. It's vacuum secondary. If memory serves, this is a 670 CFM carburetor. It does have a fuel pressure gauge, dual inlet. We have aluminum valve covers and aluminum heads. The heads are Pro Lightning, Pro Thunder heads. They have oversized valves. The valves are 208, 160 valves. Make fantastic amount of power on this truck. Have a Performer RPM intake manifold, and you can see under the carburetor there's a 1-inch open plane spacer. It's just a little bit more upper end range on the engine. The block itself is original to the truck. The block is a high nickel, high tin block. We know that when you look under the timing chain cover or in the back where the clutch is, it has the 010 and 020 cast into the block, which indicates high nickel, high tin. It's a 4-bolt main block. It's been exceptionally tough. When I had it rebuilt, it had already been bored 30 over, and I put 130,000 miles on that build, and we only had to hone it out to 40 over, so it even still has another build left in it if anybody ever ran it for that long. The water pump is still stock, and it runs just fine. Over here we have the original alternator, and it's, as far as I know, it's still the stock alternator. Down here we've got a high volume fuel pump, and in the front, aluminum 2-inch radiator, electric fan. Does a fantastic job cooling this engine. I've put this truck in parades in the middle of the summer and has a 190-degree thermostat, and it never gets over 190 no matter how slow you drive or how hot the weather gets. So it's a very, very good setup. Here on this fender, have a MSD ignition. It's a MSD 6AL blaster. It has a rev limiter. Currently has a 7,000 RPM limiter in it. And this engine, the camshaft, is based on a competition Cams 280 Magnum camshaft. It's based on it because we had them custom grind it and change the LSA from 112 degrees to 114 degrees. Our purpose in that was to make sure that we had plenty of torque for good hard launch. I've set this truck up to really run as to drag race, and it does launch hard, and it's because of that little bit wider LSA, you get a really good dynamic compression. The actual compression ratio is 9.5 to 1. You do need to run premium fuel. I've tried to run mid-grade and low-grade, and they'll ping. So it's not high-grade fuel is what's needed on this rig. I've worked on things like here on this fender. It's a new fender. You know, these fenders tend to get battery acid and rot them out, so there's no rust anywhere on this truck. And you'll also see here that we have relays for the headlights. The original headlights, the power actually routed through the printed circuit board in the dash of the truck, and they were notorious for burning out. And so these relays, they eliminate the potential for that problem. There's a high torque mini starter on this engine. Since we've got the extra compression, put a high torque mini starter on it. The transmission is a manual transmission, as we'll see when we get in the truck. It's a Muncie SM 465. It's just the traditional truck transmission that was put in all these trucks in the 70s and 80s. It's bulletproof. You can't tear them up, and it runs really well with this truck. The gearing and the rear gearing, it all comes together really well. On the front, when I did the body work on this truck, that's not the original grill, but it is an original Chevrolet grill. The time I bought it, it was one of the very last ones in existence. And on the fender here, again, these fenders, this fender's been replaced. They have a tendency to get that battery acid and ruin that front part of the quarter panel. Same way with the rocker panels. The rocker panels on both sides, they've been replaced. It's very common that they'll rust out. There's a few minor chips here and there in the paint that might be showing up in the video. They could be touched up without very much trouble. You can see here on the fender, on the corner, that's just common. You get rock chips right there, and there's just really nothing you can do about it. But as you can see, overall, it's in really good shape. The bumper is what came originally with this truck. It probably was shop built and put on by the dealer. I did a lot of work on it to try to smooth it out and make it look nicer. It could probably do with a little bit more work, but overall it's in pretty fair shape. You can see that I took off the original tail lights and put on some LEDs just to kind of clean up and smooth out the back. It's got obviously an aftermarket tailgate, and the way the tailgate opens, you've got latches and chains on the inside. Just trying to eliminate the chains on the outside, just clean up the appearance. Bed obviously could use some work. I really thought I might continue to use this truck as I had before I rebuilt it and actually use it to work out of. I never did, and so I really set the bed up to be pretty tough. And the bed could just really use a new paint job to clean that back up again. Come around, you'll see here that I have taken the gas tank out of the cab and put it back under the bed. It's a Chevy Blazer fuel tank that's under the bed. It's a brand new one. It's not an old one. And so in the cab, you've got all that space behind the seat where I've taken out the fuel tank from inside the cab. Now, one of the cosmetic issues, you could see where this is cracked, where we took out the old fuel inlet. And I'm going to close the truck. We'll get in it, and I'll crank it up. I haven't cranked it yet today, so this is going to be started with cold while it's cold. You can see the interior of the cab a little bit here. I'll probably show it again a little bit later. It's all been redone. It's in really nice shape. If you can see right here, we have the manual choke. Unless it's really cold, like down in the teens, you don't even need the manual choke. Just give it a little bit of gas. I usually let the truck warm up just a little bit, just to make sure the engine will idle on its own. When it's really cold, the engine won't idle without giving it a little bit of throttle till it's had just a little bit of time to warm up. You can see right here it's running okay. And one thing that needs to be fixed, the fuel sender in that gas tank back there has gone bad. So that's why the fuel gauge isn't working right at this point in time. Nice thing about the old truck transmission is because it's a 4-speed, you've got that really low gear that you can put it in, and that lets you just ease around parking lots and things like that. Especially since the engine wants to rev up, it makes it real simple. You don't have to Another thing about this truck, in the rear end, I have a Auburn limited slip differential. That really makes it hook up when you want to hit the throttle. We're going to ease out here to the highway, and I'm going to make a good hard run, and I'll probably run it up about 100 miles an hour or so, and you'll get to see what it'll do. See there, the truck was obviously a little cold. You could tell it wasn't hitting very well. So we'll turn around, make another run back to the house. Should be warmed up a little better. The engine's a little better warmed up that time. I think we'll do it one more pass here, and then we'll be done with it. The engine's still missing a little bit when you first launch. I'm going to guess the fuel might be a little old. And we'll have one more little bit of fun here. What's a test drive without a good burnout? One last thing concerning the clutch. It's got a ram clutch in it, and the ram is mated to a 10-inch flywheel. This truck originally came with I think it's either 11 or 12-inch flywheel, but I put a lightweight 70 model Corvette flywheel on it, and that really helps to reduce some of the rotating mass. Crank it back up and I'll walk around, let you hear what it looks like from the back.